All right, so welcome to Flatiron School. I know I already did like a quick brief all over the place welcome yesterday, but this one has an agenda, so we'll be a little bit more organized. Welcome to the second day of your data science bootcamp. I'm really excited to be here. On this call, we also have Dara, who will be your educational coach, and we'll introduce ourselves a little bit more in a couple slides. So as part of this orientation, we'll be talking about the curriculum roadmap, what you're here for, what you will be learning. We'll be introducing ourselves, myself and Dara. We are your support team. I'll be going through some expectations, talk about the importance of our community, things we're going to do to get started, and also at the end, navigating our Flatiron School system. So this includes our Flatiron School portal that you saw your bootcamp prep on, as well as Canvas that has all our learning materials. All right, to get started, this is our curriculum roadmap. Right now, we are in phase 1. So our program is divided into 5 phases. The first 4 phases are different materials. So we'll start with an intro to data with Python and SQL. We're going to move into statistics, A/B testing, and linear regression in phase 2. We'll be talking about machine learning in phase 3. And in phase 4, we'll get into big data, deep learning, natural language processing, and other advanced topics. Phase 5 will be your capstone project, which is a project that you'll be working on for 4 weeks straight. One more thing to mention, each phase will be 4 weeks long. And every phase consists, aside from the capstone, but every phase consists of 3 weeks of material and a 1-week project. So we're currently in week 1 of phase 1. I think we have 10 topics in phase 1, and on week 4, we'll be doing a phase 1 final project. Any questions on the curriculum? Awesome. Please feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any questions. I just tend to answer questions better that way. All right, so what are we really learning here? There's going to be a lot of material. Those of you who have looked at phase 1, there are a lot of lessons. But what we're really learning here is how to think like a data scientist. And our lessons are just a way to get to that. Thinking like a data scientist includes being able to read error messages. The most valuable lesson I think I learned from this program was how to Google to find your answer. I think it's such a skill to Google like the right keywords and be able to weed out what are good resources versus not as good resources. So how to Google is actually a huge part of this program as well.
Excuse me.
Along with that, finding outside resources. I have a lot of resources as well that I will periodically, like whenever relevant, be sending out to you all. But there are new things being published all the time. And so being able to find these new outside resources is also a great skill, because data science is a field that is evolving so quickly. New technologies are coming out like every couple weeks. And so being able to find these resources and employ these new techniques that we find is going to be really helpful. And finally, having a process when you're stuck. I've already given you guys one method, which is your working groups. I think there's a great benefit to asking each other and answering each other's questions. So I hope you all start with that. But then having a process such as, maybe I ask my classmates first, then consult Google, then consult Ish. Having a process. Another thing when we're thinking about code, when something doesn't work, why doesn't it work? I think with most normal problem solving, that's our first thought. Why doesn't something work? And we want to work towards getting it to work. With code, if it doesn't work very often, I think if any of you have started coding, you'll see that if something doesn't work, it tells you why. It shoots you an error message as to why it doesn't work. And so the answer is there for you. I think a harder question, especially as you're getting to learn how to code, is it works. Why does it work? And so being able to have that critical thinking, especially in these first few topics, being able to understand why the code is working, why code works like this, why Python works like this, is going to be very, very beneficial. All right, here is our full-time timeline. don't worry about all these dates. They are all going to be on the cohort calendar that I have embedded on the Canvas homepage. But just to quickly walk through, our cohort launch was yesterday. We have actually a few holidays coming up. First up, I think I think this is a Monday off for Indigenous Peoples Day. We have another holiday for Veterans Day, followed by Thanksgiving break. So those will be coming up in the next couple months. In December, we have a 1 week break. And so with that 1 week break, Flatiron School is actually closed. But don't worry, your entire program has been shifted 1 week. So you won't lose that week. So your whole program will be shifted. So instead of 20 weeks, it's technically 21 weeks, but with that break in the middle. I forget what this January 18th holiday is. Might be MLK Day. Something to also know that Flatiron School is really known for its career coaching. So your career coaching will begin around here. This will be around when you're phase 4, phase 5. And that's when you'll be assigned a career coach and you can start working towards, your new career. Another holiday here for, I want to say that's President's Day. And your graduation will be this range of late February, early March. And there will be a graduation ceremony on the 3rd of March, which seems far away now, but it'll be here sooner than you think. Any questions on this timeline? All these dates will be on our class calendar. Awesome. So your support team. So your support team consists of myself. I'm Ish, your cohort lead, your instructor, and I'll be leading study groups and doing your one-on-ones. On this call as well, we have Dara, who is your educational coach. And Dara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Dara. It's like Sarah, but with a D. And I am your educational coach. I'm really excited to see all of your beautiful faces here today. And my job as your ed coach is to be your non-technical partner throughout your journey here over the next 5 months. As your ed coach, I'm really here to support and challenge each of you to make forward progress in pursuit of your goals, which I would imagine, since you're here, is all about learning data science. So I work with my students on creating study habits that support their goals, troubleshooting any kind of blockers or challenges that come up along the way. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in depth later, but looking forward to meeting you all at our Meet Your Classmates in a couple of days.
Thanks, Dara. So I myself went through the program as well. It is very, very intensive. And when I was going through the program, I did not have someone like Dara, and I really, really wish I did. So a little bit about myself. I live in New York, technically Jersey City, but those of you who know, it's pretty much New York. As I mentioned, I was a student almost exactly 2 years ago. I was right where you are. And so more than happy to talk about, the student experience, what it was like going through the boot camp, what it was like after that. So I started off teaching on the New York campus, but since COVID, I've been teaching on the online team. Cool. So the data science team at Flatiron is not just us. There's actually a whole team of us. 10 of us instructors on the team. So if for any reason I'm not around, something that you can do, and I'll make this note in the Slack as well, is that you can actually tag DS Support Squad on Slack if you ever need help, and it will notify all of us on the team. So if you ever need something that for some reason, maybe I'm in a meeting or I'm like on PTO or something, you can tag DS Support Squad and it'll notify all of us and someone will answer your question. In addition to that, my work hours are roughly 10 to 7 Eastern time. And so outside of those hours, we actually have Ben and Matt, who are our technical coaches. And so they actually work not during these off hours. So usually in the evenings and sometimes on weekends. I think you might have seen in Slack that yesterday, Ben said hi on the channel. So if you ever have questions in the evening and you see them pop up, they will be available to answer your questions. Questions about support team? Awesome. So really quickly, one-on-ones with me. So as I'd mentioned briefly yesterday, every week you'll get about an hour and a half of one-on-ones. And so what that means is you'll get one half-an-hour one-on-one with me, and the other hour will be with your working group. So I hope that you guys will like discuss as a working group on how you want to use that hour. It can be up to you. You can book like half an hour at one time, half an hour at another time if you don't really have that many questions all at once. If all of you don't have questions, part of the working group can ask questions. Feel free to Slack me to clarify what works, what doesn't work, but I'm usually pretty flexible on that. So my one-on-one links, as well as Dara's one-on-one links, are on the Canvas homepage. So at these one-on-ones, what most students use them for is just asking questions. If you ever hit any roadblocks while you're working through material, what I think a lot of students do is just like write those questions down and then at one shot, just ask me all the questions. As we move through the course, I'll also use one-on-ones to provide knowledge checks. So for example, I have a whole bunch of interview questions that I have seen, that former students have seen while they're out interviewing for jobs. And so I have a bunch of these interview questions, and I usually like to use them to as knowledge checks. So for example, when we're going through Mod 2, I have a bunch of stats questions that I like to ask during one-on-ones to make sure that you understand what's happening. And finally, sometimes we do this, pair programming. If you're having difficulty like working through a problem, we'll just work through it together, and that's pair programming. And so these are the things that we can do during our one-on-ones. The next couple of slides, I'll pass it over to Dara, talk about educational coaching.
Oh, my favorite thing to talk about. So this is my cue to chat with you all a little bit about like, what is educational coaching? What's it all about? Why would I want to spend time with my educational coach? And this illustration is one that I really enjoy talking to students about. So if you take a look over there on the left-hand side of this this illustration, most of us start out at like that. This is the best idea ever. And expect a nice, steady uphill journey when we're excited, when we're taking on something new, when we are creating something great in our lives. You know, I would imagine that most of you are sort of at that "this is the best idea ever" point. But for most of us, you know, the journey looks a little bit more circuitous and bumpy along the way, and that's totally normal. And I have some amazing news for all of you about that. We are, myself-ish, all of you here in this cohort together are your bridge across that dark swamp that you see down there towards the bottom. If you feel like you're sliding in there, we are all here to help grab your hand, pull you up, and get you across that bridge. So this is the place to reach out and ask for support when you need it. That's really what this whole group is all about, and that's a big part of what my role is as your ed coach. This is a challenging program. Every single person here is here to learn. We don't expect you to know everything coming in, otherwise why would you be here, right? But what we do expect is for you all to rely on and support each other, because that's what this amazing, beautiful cohort that you all can see here today is for. So as I said before, this is a place to ask questions, to ask for help when you're feeling confused, and I promise you it will happen. It is a normal part of the process. So jump in to Slack, shout out those questions. More often than not, if you have a question about something or you're confused about something, you're not the only one. It's likely that somebody else is too. So if you are that brave person that jumps in to ask the question or say like, hey, I'm working on this lab and I'm a little confused, can anybody jump in and help me out? Not only will you be helping yourself, but you'll be helping probably at least one of your other fellow students, if not more. So as your ed coach, like I said, I'm here to support and challenge you. So let me talk a little bit about what that looks like. The first few weeks, and Ish, if you can move to the next slide for me, I'm going to host an office hours with the entire group each week. This week we'll all be getting together for Meet Your Classmates on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And that'll just be an opportunity for us to all kind of get together a little more casually, chat, meet each other. We'll also talk about those 4 tendencies quizzes that you all did. Ish and I have noticed a very interesting phenomenon with this group in that there are a lot of questioners here, which does not surprise me at all, being that you're all here learning data science. A lot of that is about asking questions and understanding why. So we'll talk a little bit about that tendencies quiz and why I asked you to take it and what it all means. And then you'll see for each of the subsequent 3 weeks, we will meet each week for an office hours. The second week we'll meet to just kind of talk about what it means to get started as an online student. I will have some expert student advice to share with you. I'm hoping to get a guest student to join us as well, because it's always much better for you all to hear it from somebody else who's been through the experience than to hear it secondhand from me. So we're going to try to make that happen. In week 3, we will talk. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do for week 3. Ish and I have to chat about it a little bit more. We may talk about getting ready and starting project planning and time management. We may also talk about non-technical presentation skills, because that is a big part of being a data scientist, as you will all learn very quickly. And that's a skill that I really find is good for you all to practice throughout, and that's one of the things that I'm here to help you with. And then in week 4, we will meet towards the end of that week, because that'll be the end of your first project week, and get together with whatever you have as far as your project presentations go, and everybody will get a chance to just kind of talk through it and run through it for maybe the first time, so you can get a little bit of practice in and get some feedback. So the other thing, as full-time students, you all have up to 2 individual sessions with me each month to use if and when you choose. And on these calls, we'll take a break from the technical stuff to just kind of check in on how you're doing. I'm a great accountability partner. I'm here to cheer you on, keep you motivated, and provide a space to kind of talk through any blockers or challenges that may come up along the way. And they will, I promise you they will. It's part of the process. It's totally okay. It happens to everybody. This is a challenging program. So before I hand things back to Ish, just to give you a little bit of an idea of like, what are some common topics? Like, what kinds of things can I talk to my ed coach about? So some topics that come up frequently with students, especially early on, are things like building good study habits so that you can get the most out of this program, managing your time and your energy so that you can juggle work and life and Flatiron with a little bit more ease, and prevent yourself from burning out, strengthening those presentation skills that I was talking about so that you'll be more comfortable explaining your projects to non-technical audiences, because that's going to be a big part of your work once you get out into the professional world of data science. Any questions about ed coaching before we hand things back? I must have done a really fantastic job. Ish, back to you.
Thanks, Dara. All right, this next part of orientation, we're going to be talking about expectations. And this is just an agenda for all the expectations. So we have a code of conduct. We'll talk about what the requirements are to graduate, weekly assignments and study groups, blogging, projects, and a phase repeat policy. So first of all, code of conduct. These are some phrases that I think all seem pretty, it just makes sense. Be considerate, respectful, collaborative with one another. Don't be mean. Create a positive impact. Participate in an authentic and active way. And lift up learners who are struggling to encourage them to help them along. So Flatiron, we believe that our community should be open for everyone. We're committed to providing a friendly, safe, welcoming environment for all, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, disability, ethnicity, religion, preferred operating system, programming language, or text editor. The idea of learning together as a community is baked into the Flatiron philosophy, and we strive to be a place where we can achieve more together than we could ever achieve alone. We expect all faculty, teachers, employees, mentors, students, guests, friends, basically everyone involved with the school to help us create a safe and positive environment for everybody. Next, graduation requirements. So there are two main graduation requirements, 7 blog posts and 5 projects. So the 7 blog posts, there'll be a slide later where I go more in depth into blogging, but you'll be asked to write blogs. And those are basically pieces that you'll write, mostly about your projects, but also about anything that you are interested in the realm of data science. Blogs you'll see at the very end of each phase. 1 blog post in phases 1, 3, and 5, and 2 each in 2 and 4. You just have to finish 7 blog posts by the end of your time at Flatiron to graduate. And on top of that, passing all 5 project reviews in order. And so as I mentioned, at the end of every phase, there is a phase final project. And with each project comes a project review where I'll sit down with you and we'll talk about your project and make sure that you meet the technical requirements. They also have to be in order, but you can't move on if you don't pass a specific project. Cool. Any questions on these graduation requirements? Awesome.
Wait, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Question quickly. So there's no, like I saw when we were doing the labs and stuff like that, there's no points for doing labs and for doing like the reading assignments, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. So Flatiron doesn't do grades. We just do project reviews where you'll see when we get there, but there's a rubric. And as long as you hit the requirements, it's more of like a pass-fail system.
Gotcha.
Good question. All right, so this is what a typical week will look like. Pretty much Tuesday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll be having an hour-long study group. What each study group would be about will be on the calendar, and also in our homeroom, I'll just make a note of what it is. So this is the case for instructional weeks, which basically we're going through topic materials. And on project weeks, the study groups will be replaced by office hours, where either I'll be talking about something specific pertaining to a project, or just time for you to ask me questions as a class. In a week, Monday there are no class meeting times, but Monday's usually for you, get back into the groove of things after the weekend. But typically another thing to take note of is by Sunday, the expectation is kind of to finish going through the lessons for each topic that needed to be completed over the week. Does that make sense? So on average is about 40 hours a week of working on material. All right, so blogging. Earlier I talked about we have to do 7 blog posts. So with the blog posts, 5 out of 7 of the blogs can be about your project. If you don't feel like writing about your project, you would turn one of those blogs into anything else related to data science. So usually what I suggest is for your first blog post, talk about your journey to get to data science and how you decided to pursue data science. Where you write these blogs is really up to you. If you already have a blog somewhere, feel free to write your blog post there, because on Canvas, all you have to do is paste a URL. So you can write your blogs anywhere you want. I personally like Medium, if anyone has heard of Medium. So medium.com is just a blogging platform. I like Medium because actually there are a lot of data science articles that are written on Medium. And maybe next week or after like the hump of orientation has died down, I'll introduce Medium a little more. But I personally like to write my blogs on Medium. The blog requirements, they just have to be something data science related. It doesn't even have to be technical. As I mentioned, the first blog, I usually like to see how you found data science and what brought you here. Other blog topics that are non-technical I've seen include things like networking in a data science environment, or how to give a data science presentation, which is something that we'll all have to go through. So usually the easiest blogs to write are the ones about your project, because you basically work on your project for about a week. And so it's easy to write a blog post about that. But again, if you don't want to write your blog post about your project, you can write it about anything data science related. If you find a really cool data science algorithm that you want to talk about, feel free to write a blog about that. There are some more details about blog posts, their requirements, and what they should look like on Canvas in phase 1. Question about blogs? Awesome. All right, next we're going to talk about projects. So as I mentioned, there will be 5 projects, 4 end of phase projects, and a capstone. All of them kind of have the same process. You'll be working on your end of phase projects for a week straight. My plan is to have some projects be paired as well. So you'll be working on projects with someone else. And so with the projects, there will be a very clear rubric. So you're going to meet some technical requirements. Portfolio projects are really good for building your portfolio as well. Once you start career coaching, you'll see that on your data science resume, you'll actually list your projects. And so that having good projects is just a good thing to have in your resume as well. Something to be very clear on is your due dates. So as I mentioned, every 4th week is a project week. The project will be due on the Sunday, so the end of that 4th week. At the end of that week, you'll submit your project on Canvas, and then you'll have 2 weeks after that to schedule a project review with me, after which I will look through your code, you'll talk about your project and what you did, and then if there's anything that you need to fix up, you have to have that fixed up exactly 2 weeks after that initial Sunday date. Does that make sense? I will definitely go through all of these requirements again as we get to projects. But any questions so far on like that due date thing? So basically you have 2 chances to pass the project. You either pass it at our review within the 2 weeks, or if during our review there's something that you need to fix, you can fix that within those 2 weeks as well. Cool. So what does a project review look like? Mostly I'll be just going through the rubric to see if you hit the technical requirements. During project reviews, I'll also be giving you feedback on your presentation. So each of your projects comes with a presentation. And I'll talk about these when we get to projects in week 4. But you will be presenting your projects to the class. So I'll be giving you your presentation feedback during those project reviews as well. During those project reviews, as I mentioned, you'll be talking about your code. I want to hear about the processes that you took, what you were thinking as you were going through setting up your project, and what you think about your results. And then I'll always give written feedback. There will be a rubric which I will follow, and I will give notes based on every criteria and on the rubric. Sound good? Questions on projects?
Quick question. It sounds like we present to the class first and then do the review with you, or?
That's right. That is right. So usually I'll have the presentations be on a Monday. So with the project being due on Sunday, presentations will usually be on a Monday, and then reviews will come the 2 weeks following.
Okay, and what you were saying about the 2 dates to fix any errors. So if you schedule a review late in that 2 weeks, you have less time to fix it. Is that correct?
Exactly, exactly. So actually most students, depending on how much time I have on my schedule, most students actually I've been able to fit within that 1st week so that there's at least a week to fix it by.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions about projects? Great. Next, I want to talk about the phase repeat policy. So I understand through experience that this is a very, very intense course. I personally had a breakdown after phase 1, being like, I can't do this, I'm gonna fail, I'm not meant to be a data scientist. But I made it through. But a lot of people just need a little bit more time to get used to the pace, to get used to the material, get used to using like a totally different part of your brain. And so what if you can't keep up with your cohort or don't pass your project review? So the policies right here, at the end of each phase, you have to pass the project review to move on to the next phase. if you fail to pass the evaluation within the 2 weeks after your project is due, you will be required to repeat that phase in full by transferring to the next cohort that is starting. So cohorts start every 6 weeks. So let's say you fail to pass the review for phase 1, you'll just start off with the next cohort again and repeat the whole of phase 1. There is no additional charge to repeat one phase once. Cool. So let's say it just took a little bit more time to get used to, you know, the pace of the course, and you didn't pass the first project. There's no additional charge to restart phase 1. But let's say something happens at like phase 3 or phase 4, and you don't pass your project review again, you won't be able to repeat free of charge. So there are different terms and options for changing paces. So there are also options to change to a part-time pace or a self-paced program. And it does vary based on the catalog that you signed at enrollment. So hopefully you all at least skimmed your catalog. But if you ever think that, you know, this pace is maybe too fast, or you have any concerns about your learning, feel free to talk about it with me at your one-on-one, and we can discuss options then. Cool. And you can view your documents by visiting the documents section of your Flatiron School portal. And what the Flatiron School portal is, I'm going to talk about in a few slides. Questions about this phase repeat policy? Awesome. All right, community. I really, really love the Flatiron School community. I think it is one of the differentiating factors that Flatiron School has. It's so important because we are all in this one cohort, and we all have the same goals of getting a new job as a data scientist. There is so much to take advantage of in the Flatiron community. You'll see on that calendar I actually showed you all yesterday that there are a lot of community events that go on. A lot of alumni always come back and talk about what it's like out there in the real world. And so it's a really good opportunity to network, especially boot camps being such a new phenomenon in the past couple of years. Having this shared boot camp experience is just like a strong bonding factor, I think. So community. You have your homeroom, which is this right here, which hopefully you all have seen, where I'll just put your weekly goals and announcements. I will edit this usually at the end or beginning of every week. And then there's Slack. Slack is sort of like our water cooler, where it's just for us to talk and ask questions. And so I really, really recommend that if you have a question on something, and let's say you wanted to pose it to the entire class, or even pose it to me, put it in the class channel, because very likely someone else has the same question as you. I think Darren mentioned this earlier. Working through problems together is just so mutually beneficial. Slack's also a really good space for community, you know? As maybe next week, I think next week I will post some channels that are worth joining that have things like daily data science questions, phase specific chat, and there are also some like fun interest channels if you browse them on Slack. Yeah, and there are also alumni channels on Slack. And yeah, it's a really good place to build community, in my opinion. And a lot of tech companies actually use Slack as their messaging platform, so it's just good to get used to the workings of Slack. So more about Slack. Slack is organized in channels. As I mentioned, you can browse channels to find things of interest. I think on the Flatiron School Slack, if you start searching a channel that starts with the word fun, you'll see all the interest channels. I think there used to be like a dog of the day channel that will just send a picture of a cute puppy every day. And I used to like looking at that. Daily stand-ups, that's something that we haven't done yet, but I'm gonna start doing right after this. And so daily stand-ups, has anyone heard of a stand-up? All right, some like subtle nods and shakes. So stand-up is a really great accountability tool. If you're working in a team, very likely you'll be asked to do some form of a stand-up at your company. So what we'll do in the form of how we'll do stand-ups is every day on Slack, if no one else does it, I'll start by just posting what I did yesterday or over the weekend, what I plan on doing today, and any blockers I'm facing. And that's just a really good way to keep accountable, keep track of your work, and just, you know, if anyone is facing any blockers that you maybe have a solution to, you can help them out. And so how we'll do this, we'll just have a thread every day for stand-ups. I'd mentioned DS Support Squad. If you have questions and I'm not available, and if you have not already done so, just say hi in the Slack channel. Questions about Slack. I'll be starting the daily stand-ups right after this, so you can sort of see how that formatting and what kind of information goes in there. And hopefully we keep up these stand-ups every day. I will tag you all if you don't have your stand-up. Cool. Oops. All right, so checklist for week 1. On Thursday, we'll be doing the Meet Your Classmates. The link I have linked on the calendar as well as on the homeroom over here. And it's also in the calendar over here. So that'll be happening Thursday morning. Say hi in Slack if you haven't yet. Schedule your first one-on-one with me. So a couple of you guys have already done that. But if you haven't yet, schedule your first individual one-on-one with me. I just want to get to know you all. So just do that, say hi. I want to get to know about what you want to get out of this program and a bit more about how I can do my best to get you there. And so again, the link to schedule one-on-one is here. And in my one-on-one, you'll see a couple options, but click Instructor Weekly One-on-One, and then you'll be able to see all the times that I have free. And then just pick one, and then you'll get an email with a Zoom link. Dara's one-on-one link also works similarly. Review the cohort calendar, save the dates. If any of you like to use Google Calendar, you can actually add this calendar to your own personal Google Calendar, just so it's together with all your other events, if that's what you want. I recommend doing that just so I don't miss any events. And get started on your lessons labs. Really quickly, if you haven't seen it yet, in our Slack channel on the top, I've actually linked our homeroom. And to get to our phase 1 material, you click onto courses. And I have a lot more courses for other cohorts, but you should see homeroom in phase 1. So if you just click on phase 1, you'll see our phase 1 material. So what you should see is more similar to this. And you can just start working through material. And I think today we have our very first study group where we'll be talking about everything under topic 1. So questions about stuff this week? Cool.
I had a question. Someone had mentioned to me before taking the course that they would do like daily coding challenges. Is that something?
Yeah. It'll be part of the morning stand-up. So sometimes I'll be asking either interview questions or I'll post a link to a daily coding question. I actually wasn't going to do that for the first week, just so you know, y'all get used to just all of this material that's going to be kind of overwhelming. But yeah, starting week 2, I will be posting like daily questions. But yeah, that's a really good thing to bring up. I was actually only going to talk about it next week. Cool. Anything else? Awesome. So last thing we're going to talk about are the Flatiron school systems. Might be a little bit confusing because you did your bootcamp prep on learn.co. We now have Canvas and we have this Flatiron school portal. So just a little bit to clarify what all these systems are for. So there's the Flatiron school student portal where you did your bootcamp prep. That is really for your login credentials and your enrollment form. So if you want to take a look at the documents that you signed, your student handbook, that is all in the student portal. There's also Canvas, and Canvas is actually what we call this platform, where you have all of your course materials as well as the homeroom. So even though you did your bootcamp prep on a different platform, all learning will be done on Canvas from now on. And finally, there's Slack, which as I mentioned is for us to just talk to each other, keep each other accountable, ask questions, do our daily stand-ups, all of that. Any questions about the overall systems? Great. So on Canvas, just because it might be a little tricky to navigate if it's your first time seeing it, there are two groups of courses. There is our homeroom course, which won't change for the rest of this program. These are different cohort numbers, so don't worry about that. But you would have a homeroom course here. So this is your homeroom course. Aside from your homeroom course, you have your phase courses. So right now we only have phase 1. I will actually upload or release the next phases, typically the week before we start the next phase. So basically in week 4, I will release the materials for phase 2. And then when we get to that, in courses, you'll see phase 1 and a phase 2. Sound good? So basically right now, I'm not overwhelming you all with all of the course material. And so there will be 4 phase courses in total. Cool. So Illumidesk might be something that some of you have already seen if you've started working on some of the labs. Illumidesk is used in the phase courses. And it's basically an online Jupyter notebook. If we've seen, I think we sort of saw Jupyter notebooks yesterday, but Illumidesk is sort of like a cloud system that lets you store your Jupyter notebooks. Several ways to do this. If you're on a specific lesson, let's go into phase 1 and let's just pick a specific lesson. Let's say I'm working on Introduction to Variables Strings. If I open up this lab in this new window, you'll have, it takes a little bit to load. But you basically have your own server where all your Jupyter notebooks will live. And so you see here, it opens something like this and I can work on my stuff. This does save every once in a while. So if I'm working on stuff here and let's say I don't know, want to have lunch or something, I can close this out. If I come back to it, your work will still be there. If your work has ever disappeared, please let me know immediately. So other than that, let's say you want to go back to one of your old labs. Another way to do that is through this button here, the Illumidesk button on the left panel. So if you click on the Illumidesk panel, let's see if this works. If you go onto My Server, this will be a list of every lab you've opened. So there are 2 ways you can access labs, either through this Illumidesk button on the left, which brings you to all the labs that you've opened, which can get a little bit messy as we build up the number of labs that we do, but it is organized in like last opened. But yeah, that's a little bit about working with labs so you can all get started. So what exactly are homeroom and phase used for? Homeroom has your cohort calendar, any announcement I have, I'll post on there. Surveys, because you'll be doing a survey at the end of every phase, and recordings. As you see here, but if we go back to our homeroom, there's a link to our YouTube playlist that yesterday's video was on, and today's video, this video will be on. So if you click on the study group playlist, you'll actually see that yesterday's video was there. Each phase course, you can sort of think of that as your textbook workbook. And as I'd mentioned, new material is going to be released at the end of each phase every 4 weeks. Questions about Canvas or the learning platform, anything?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering which one do you recommend to use Illumidesk or clone it to our local machine?
That's a really good question. It kind of depends. I'll talk about cloning to your local machine tomorrow at tomorrow's study group. It's kind of up to you. I personally, for the most part, would use Illumidesk just because it's a little more organized because I know exactly where everything is. When I would clone it to my local machine is if it was a bigger lab that I want to have on my local machine. Like let's say there are several labs that you'll see. For example, let's see, phase 1, there is a bigger lab at the end of topic 4. I know that this is pretty much a mini project and I just want to have that on my local machine so I have access to it whenever. And so bigger projects like that, I would do on my local machine. But for the most part, Illumidesk does save your work. So it's a little bit easier. You don't have to deal with like Git clone. You don't have to like save things on your local machine, on your computer, and it does take up space. So for the most part, I would work on Illumidesk, but we'll talk about cloning at tomorrow's study group. But that's a good question.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else?
We will be using only Canvas, right? The Flatiron thing is only for the reference material?
That's right. That's correct. We'll be using only Canvas for all material going forward.
Okay.
Great. And that is the end of our orientation. I will see you on the internet. Does anyone have any like overall questions about anything at all? Great. Well, I'm always available on Slack. In between my one-on-ones, I'm always answering questions. So if anything comes up, please let me know. But in that case, welcome to Flatiron School. I will actually see you all at our very first study group at 2 p.m. Eastern. So that's in like about 2 hours. So I'll see you all there.
And I look forward to seeing all of you Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern for our Meet Your Classmates. Those are always fun.
All right. Go take a quick break. Maybe have lunch if it's in your time zone. But I'll see you all later. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.